Hello, my name is Aidan O'Brien, Head of Corporate Services Division here in the Department of Justice. Part of my responsibility is the Information Resources area, which manages the library here in 51 St Stephen's Green. We're here in a room off the library in what is known as the Banned Books Room. And it's fitting that as we celebrate the centenary year of the department in 2024, that we have a look at this collection which relates to the censorship of publications, which has been in place for most of those 100 years. Censorship in the Irish Free State was established at a time when relations between the state and the Catholic Church were evolving. The Catholic Truth Society, an organisation led by Frank O'Reilly, an ex-civil servant, gave vitality to the campaign for moral reform. In 1925, Kevin O'Higgins, the Minister for Justice at the time, met representatives of the Priests' Social Guild and the Irish Vigilance Association, and in early 1926 the government set up a committee on evil literature, as a suitable definition for obscenity was badly needed. In January 1926, Henry O'Friel, who was the Secretary of the Department, wrote through the High Commissioner in Britain, James McNeill, to say that the Minister was being subjected to substantial pressure to control indecent literature and contraceptives. This was a very difficult situation here in Ireland, as the main Christian churches held radically different views. McNeill advised that to avoid legislation and to use the Customs Acts to put pressure on newsagents, and that all consignments could be examined. Those who were dissatisfied could then go to the courts, where it was said a public outcry on their behalf was very unlikely to happen. Protestant objections to censorship grounded less in the fear of art and the imagery, but feared that it would lead to a ban on discussions of contraceptives and eventually to prohibition. In the meantime, the Catholic Truth Society of Ireland published a draft bill to license booksellers in the same way as public houses. It was proposed to refuse licenses where reasonable precautions were not taken to guard against the distribution of immoral or dangerous literature. This hinged on the Department of Justice then preparing a register to prohibit publications. So then in December 1926, the Committee on Evil Literature completed its report and made a number of recommendations. The first was to have a wider definitions of obscenity and indecency, that reporting of the judicial proceedings be regulated, and to make it easy for the police to get warrants to search, and that the maximum penalties under the Indecent Advertisement Act of 1889 also be increased. Crucially, they also recommended setting up a censorship committee and banning publications advocating contraception. It was suggested a board of censors who could ban publications harmful to public morality rather than applying a legalistic reproach was required. The report was welcomed but delayed in being actioned. In May 1927, the Angelic Warfare Association held up a train in Dundalk and burned the cargo of Sunday papers. There was lots of activity in and around this area at the time. Then under Minister James Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was Minister from 27 to 32, a bill emerged in August 1928 and included a lot of changes to the Committee of Evil Literature proposals. In the end, this resulted in the Censorship of Publications Act 1929, which was published in July of that year. And the first act covered books, periodical publications, and reports of judicial proceedings. And what that meant was you couldn't be too graphic in describing crime scenes, etc., that were revealed in court. It also prohibited the sales of publications of pictures and publications advocating contraception. A second iteration of the Act came through then in 1946, and that added some more detail, including details around fees and appeals. And then a third iteration of the Act came in 1967, and this provided for orders to expire a week after 12 years of the prohibition order. So when books had been banned after 12 years, they could be reviewed then. By way of interest, I suppose, the first board reviewed a small number of books. The board wanted to purchase more, and the government gave £10 at the time, but it warned that it was intended that the public were to pay for the work of the board. So the board very cleverly joined the Times Book Club and borrowed the books, reviewed them and returned them, and then in many cases banned them. And officials in the Department of Finance were very intrigued by this bright idea and they didn't look for their money back. I suppose anecdotally as well then, periodicals that were reviewed had to have 3 consecutive copies submitted for review. It is said, but we're not sure how true this is, that publishers cottoned onto this and might have had material in 2 consecutive editions and then in a 3rd edition not. As in the olden days and now, there's always a way to exploit a loophole. In November 2023, the government gave approval to repeal the Censorship of Publication Acts. So now here in the department we are currently cataloguing the files, the papers, the books and the magazines in preparation of the repeal being passed and to transfer these records to the National Archives. The collection consists of about 1,200 magazines and periodicals. There's about 3,800 books by 2,700 authors, and we've 30 boxes of files which include all the original minute books of the board and also the handwritten registers of the prohibited publications and periodicals. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you've got some good information from it.